they were playing disco, and you know, and Hurricane Bambaataa, you know, they'd play other stuff too, for sure. But you know, the majority of it was disco, and then you know, rock that had a beat, funk. But to me, going between two records, I first saw that in a disco. John Luongo in Boston, Walter Gibbons in New York. Met all those guys right in 1981. I met Jazzy and Bam, and you know, and all the rappers and stuff. So you know, it was exciting because it was like being, it was, you know, it was a new world, really. You know, it was Rock Rock the Planet Rock Don't Stop, and I came up with that off of a disco record that had a similar vibe, which was a record called Body Music. And it goes rock, rock to the rock, punk rock.
Wow, really? Wow.
Yeah, no,
that's my next question. You know, that scene where, you know, come on, Mr. Engineer, get it right, get it right, because if you don't, what is the story behind that? Who was the engineer?
Here's the book.
Can you do a close up to the camera? Let's have a little, yes, that's it. Wow.
There it is. That is me barking on that, by the way.
It's not.
It is.
Oh, is you barking?
Yeah, and all the Hey Buddy Buddies, that's me.
That's
man.
you as well.
Yeah, and me, I'm on Looking for the Perfect Beat. When I'm looking for the perfect beat, that's me too.
That's you as well.
I'd put myself on my records for sure.
Wow.
We didn't have a lot of gear, you know. We had we rented the 808. Roby had a micro Moog, not even a mini Moog, a micro Moog. He had a few other keys, one other key, and then a keyboard, and that was it. And we had like one delay unit and a reverb.
Did you find that perfect beat? Let's hit the play button. Let's do this.
The play button. Is there a play button on there? Play at your own risk.
So let's do this. So lights.
We made it.
Let's
we
do
made
this.
It.
Lights, camera, action.
We did it. We did it.
On this week's show, we have someone in the cab who has produced and remixed some incredible artists, from the Soul Sonic Fools, Grandmaster Melly Mel, Bruce Springsteen, Planet Patrol, Bob Dylan, Hall & Oates, Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, New Order, Nana Cherry, Cyndi Lauper, and so many, many more. He's also a DJ and now an author with his incredible new book called Looking for the Perfect Beat. We have, from the Big Apple all the way over to the Big Smoke in London town, we have the one and the only, the multi-talented Arthur Baker in the world-class, iconic London Taxi.
Wow.
Yes, Arthur.
What an intro, man.
You are in the back of the UltraCab.
We're in the BlackCab outside of White City House. So that's good. The white and the black, you know?
Yeah,
and I wish my daughter was here because she would so love this. She'd be loving to sit right next to me. So next one, when we come back for the return of Arthur Baker, we could do it again.
Yeah, because your daughter absolutely loves the iconic London BlackCab, doesn't she?
She loves it, man. She would not let us she would not let us take an Uber.
Yeah,
she was like anti-Uber, and she was like, Papa, just the BlackCab.
Exactly. You know, keep it traditional.
Keep it real. Keeping it real.
You know that. And I was going to say as well, big shout out to my man Michael
Holman.
Yes.
The unicorn man.
You know, so much passion and heart and soul into hip-hop culture. He's absolutely incredible.
Absolutely. Now, you do know I lived in London for over 20 years.
No, I know you did.
Close to 25. So
I know you did.
I know these mean streets of London.
So I'm not going to go like the wrong way. Don't worry, Arthur. We got you covered.
I was on my scooter riding through King's Cross every day. I nearly died a few times, actually.
Do you know, I was going to say to you, last time I actually see you was at a place called the Milk Bar. The night was called Glam, and it was Jackie 60, and this was early 90s.
God, but whereabouts was it? Where was Glam? Where was
the Milk Bar.
Oh, at the Milk Bar right in Soho.
And you were standing behind the decks. I think it was next to like Danny Rampling or someone, and Jackie 60 was over. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was around 92. We did a little tour, and I have to say that I forgot that gig. Now I remember, but I mean, we went and we played in Nottingham, and we did a thing where DJ Sasha He was just starting out, and I think he's starting out, and also John Pleased Women.
John Pleased Women, and Darren as well.
Yeah, they both they played that party in Nottingham. I forget the name of the club, but that one I remember just because I don't know, I just remember that one.
Well, they would have been, John Pleased Women would have been at the Milk Bar, because he was there. There was three of them. One was called Darren as well, like blonde.
Yeah.
You had John Pleased Women.
Yeah.
And but that night was legendary. That's the first time I'd seen, like, you know, the outfits that they was wearing was on another scale.
It was. From what I've heard, people have told me that was sort of brought something new to London, which I always try to do, is bring new things to London, you know. And then I brought Jackie 60 back in 2002 when I started the Return to New York parties in Shoreditch. And yeah, I'm actually doing one on Friday night, the Return to New York, and should be pretty much fun this Friday. But I don't know, yeah.
Well, I'm definitely going to try and reach
that.
Yeah,
you should try to come by. It should be good.
But let's quickly kick it off. I mean, we're not going to go into too much detail, Arthur, because I know we're going to push the book as well. And
well, whatever, you can go you know, we have a long ride across London. You can talk about whatever you want. You know?
I might take you the long way.
Yeah.
No, I'm only joking. I want to get you in the cab as long as possible. No, yeah. But it'd be absolutely amazing talking history. Yeah. Obviously, you're from Boston. You know, what was it like growing up as a young Arthur Baker? You know, what music was you growing up on?
Well, I literally loved all kinds of music. From, you know, I loved the Jackson 5 and Motown. I also liked David Bowie. I liked, Allman Brothers. The first gig I ever went to when I was 14 was Led Zeppelin, MC5, and Johnny Winter. The second gig I went to was the Rolling Stones, Ike and Tina Turner, and B.B. King. So I was into rock, and I was into funk, and then in early 70s, disco, Philadelphia, Motown. I loved anything with the groove,
and anything with a bit of soul, and
passion. and it was, you know, there was a lot of music, even rock and roll. There was a lot of funky rock and roll. You know, that was a thing. Looking back, when I listened to the records I listened to when I was a kid. The rock records, what they all have in common is they actually had a groove, you know, and finding rock music that had a real groove, whether it was Aerosmith, Walk This Way, or Steve Miller, or Little Feat, or The Band, or any of these rock bands. And a lot of those beats were sampled later on when hip-hop became hip-hop.
Well, that's right, yeah, and that's the great thing with hip-hop. It was basically, as you know, Arthur, it was expanding our mind with all different styles of music.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be just funk, did it? It was like loads of different styles.
It was rock. You know, you go back and you hear things that people have, you know, Q-Tip and Tribe Called Quest have sampled. So many different things that, you know, I didn't even know that, you know, I heard that they had sampled one of the records by The Band, you know, and formerly Bob Dylan's backup group, but they sampled a couple of tracks in their records that literally I didn't know. I mean, they were records I knew and played, but I never knew that they had actually sampled them. And then when I listened to the tracks and heard it, it was pretty cool that they had done that. But I mean, this was all before, obviously, rap didn't really happen not even in a commercial way until like 77, 78. That's when you know, a lot of people say it's been 50 years, but I'm not one of them. To me, I first heard it in the parks in 1977, 78.
What, the parks in where? New York?
In the Bronx, yeah. Because
was you there?
Yeah, I was there. I was there that early because I was working with a guy by the name, a musician by the name of Joe Bataan, who was a you know, salsa singer. He helped start Fania Records and also Salsoul, and we were working on a disco record. And he called me up and said, "Yo, you got to come up town to the park. There's guys talking over records." That's what he said. There's guys talking over these records, and he said someone's going to make $1 million on this. He literally said it. He convinced me to go up to the Bronx and go up to the park. It was like 123rd or whatever, and there were guys talking over music coming out of the boombox, and one of the big tracks everyone was rhyming over was "Gotta Be Real" by Cheryl Lynn, he then went into the studio the next 1 or 2 weeks later and cut a song called Rappo Clappo, which is there is an argument that it was probably the second. King Tut supposedly was the first rap on record, and then then you go to Curtis Blow and Sugar Hill and all that. But he went in. I was in there when he recorded it. But he was one of the first to do a rap on vinyl for sure. And then it just blew up. Then Rapper's Delight and the Breaks came out.
Curtis Blow and
then it just all blew up.
And in terms of going to the Bronx for the first time, it must have been a bit of an opener. I mean, was you seeing like graphed out trains and like graffiti on walls and?
Yeah, that was all. I'd been to the Bronx early because I went to college in the college I went to, Hampshire College, but a lot of my friends there, I went there in '74. A lot of my boys were most of my best friends were Puerto Ricans from New York who lived in the Bronx. So basically, I'd go back home with them in '74, '75, and I'd be in the Bronx with my boys. So this is before I was making records. I was just starting to DJ disco, '74, '75. But I would go to the Bronx and hang out there, and it was an amazing vibe. It was just like on a sunny day, everyone hanging out on the corner, and kids, going under the fire hydrants with the water, all that thing you see.
Oh, the block parties.
Yeah, it was all like that. It was all happening, and I got to see that way before I went and started making music, because I had friends who lived there, and then with Joe Bataan, he hit me to what was going on in the Bronx musically, and then from there on. But I was into Fania records, and I was into salsa.
Was you collecting records there as well?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Where was you digging? Where was you like sniffing out your crop?
Well, I was gigging. I would play parties at college, but then the first gig I got was a place called Rashid's, and it was a disco in Amherst, Mass, where I went to college. So that was 75, 74, and 75. And, that was the first proper gig I had. And then when I moved back to Boston in 76, I'd play random horrible clubs, and, just sort of, everyone was making a disco. That's what I wanted to say. It was all disco, and every little tacky bar would get 2 turntables, and it would become a disco, get some lighting. So I played at, a bunch of random places.
Well, disco was absolutely huge, wasn't it?
Well, without disco, there'd be no hip hop for sure, because all the tracks that the original b-boys were dancing to, and also the rappers were rhyming to, were disco records. There was nothing else. I mean, of course some funk, but a lot of it was what I would consider disco funk, like Cheryl Lynn, The Emotions, Parliament Funkadelic, and others. It was funk, but it was also disco too. So that hip hop literally is the sort of the bastard child of disco,
And from what I sort of research is that the hip hop was more for like a younger kind of generation, where the disco was more for like an older crowd at the time.
Disco, you'd go to a club and go to listen to disco, but in the parks, what do you think the DJs were playing in the parks? They weren't making new music. They were playing disco, and Hurricane Bambaataa, they'd play other stuff too for sure, but the majority of it was disco, and then rock that had a beat, funk. But to me, going between 2 records, I first saw that in a disco. John Luongo in Boston, Walter Gibbons in New York. They would like to extend the records. They would play they'd have 2 copies, and they go back and forth, which then Herc did. But the guys who were doing it, the guys I mentioned, John Luongo, Walter Gibbons, they were really good at it, and they would extend. This is pre 12-inch records, so you'd have 2 45s, you'd have the instrumental, and you'd have the vocal, and you could make a whole new arrangement using the two different records. So
How early doors was that, Arthur? Was that like what? Was that kind of what, mid-70s?
that's mid-70s, yeah, 77, 76. It was. I mean, when I'd go to get records and when I'd go to record labels to get records back in, say, 76, 77, we'd always try to get 2 copies so we could go back and forth, you know. That was the thing. Everyone needed, you needed 2 if there was a good record and it had an instrumental side, you wanted 2 copies of it for sure.
And did you ever go at, you know, doing kind of back-to-back mixes or any scratching or?
No. I didn't even attempt to. That wasn't my thing, you know. I would go back and forth between the record and extend it, but I didn't. That came later. I mean, these guys weren't the guys I'm talking about who were playing disco. No one did any scratching. That came after, and that was nothing we would have been interested in. We were just really trying to extend the record. That was to make it longer so you get this super mix, you know.
Wow. And when's the first time you started seeing the B-boys and B-girls? Was it like and the poppers? Was that kind of what?
Oh,
late
I would see
70s?
it. You would see it in the first time I saw people b-boying, it would be in like Times Square. You know, they'd drop me. You know, they would drop linoleum or cardboard, and they'd have someone. Usually, they'd have a guy playing beats on a upside down trash can or something, and then they'd be collecting money. So I mean, I really saw it there. That my memory is seeing it there. And you know, whenever I'd go to Bambata's parties in the Bronx River, there'd be people b-boying too. But I think probably I would have seen it in Times Square or in the park, Washington Square Park. I would have seen it then, and that would have been probably, I'd say, 79. Seeing it in Times Square, it would have been 79.
Who was you witnessing? Would it have been Rocksteady, New York City Breakers?
No,
Dynamic
these were
Rockers?
just random guys. It could have been. I don't know. These were guys. This
Yeah.
was before I knew what it was. I just remember seeing guys dancing and spinning in Times Square on linoleum and cardboard. You know.
And when's the first time you went to Bronx River? Because I know when I spoke to Michael Holman in the cab,
Yeah.
that was incredible history that he told me
Yeah.
when he took Malcolm McLaren
Yeah.
to Bronx River in 1981. Because Malcolm was over, obviously managing Bow Wow Wow.
Yeah.
That was in 81. So when
No,
was,
that's when I saw it, because I started working with Bam in '81 when we did Jazzy Sensation. So I met him. I met Bam through Tom Silverman of Tommy Boy, and I'm repping Tommy Boy hoodie here. But yeah, I met him in '81, and he said, you know, he introduced me to Bam, and then he said, let's go uptown and check out what Bam does, which I did, and I went to one of the parties, and then we started making records. So.
and Arthur, what did you think of the Bronx River, and you know, and what was going on in the community centre where they held the jams? That must have been electric, seeing like Jazzy J on the decks, and you know.
Yeah. I met all those guys right in 1981. I met Jazzy and Bam, and you know, and all the rappers and stuff. So you know, it was exciting, because it was like it was a new world, really. You know, it was like a new world going up there. It was so exciting, and you know, and the music Bam and Jazzy played was rocking, and the kids would dance. You know, it was like, I know Michael has footage of it. You know, and it's when you see the footage, it really takes you back to it for sure.
Yeah, I bet it does. And in terms of like, you know, clubs, was you obviously going to like the Loft and about Studio 54's Mud Club?
Yeah, all those. Yeah, I mean the Loft. I went really early on to the Loft, but then when I started making records, so in '81, '82, then it became, you know, I'd go out every night and bring records out and hang out with the DJs. So I mean, my spots were like Danceteria, Paradise Garage, and the Funhouse, and Better Days where T. Scott played, you know.
I bet Jilly Bean was amazing at the Funhouse.
Yeah, he was great, and you know, we became very close friends, and then I'd bring him in on working on some of my tracks with me, and get sort of like a mixed consultant, you know. I would do that.
you said like testing the record out. Like, what would you do? Like, get a few
Well, I'd have an acetate or I'd have a tape. So basically, I would bring tapes to Jelly Bean because he had a reel-to-reel. So he would actually take the time to put the thing tape on and just go, you know, and I mean, which wasn't easy, you know. In the middle, he'd put on a long record, then he'd put the tape on, set it up. But occasionally I'd get an acetate cut, but that would be pretty much usually after the record was finished, and then I would take it out. Like with Planet Rock, after we finished that, I got a couple of acetates cut, and I would go to like record shops and just play it for the, you know, for the employees there, and also for the people to just see what kind of reaction it would get, and that was really cool to play a record. Like really slam a record in a record shop and see how many people come up and if they say anything. And the first time I played Planet Rock in Brooklyn at the Music Factory, which is where the guys from Rocker's Revenge, Donnie and Dwight, used to work, we put it on, and literally someone came up and offered me $100 for the acetate. So I knew we had a vibe going.
And when you're seeing people, you know, literally going off to your tracks, that must, you know, how does that make you feel?
Well, of course, it makes you feel like you've done something right. You know, like when you clear the dance floor, that, you know,
you've done something wrong. You're not going to release it.
That's happened too, but it really, you know, because sometimes tracks will clear the dance floor just because people just don't understand them yet. And someone like Larry Levan at Paradise Garage, he would play a track 5 times. He'd like, and if you know, if he believed in a track, it was like, if at first it don't succeed, try again. He would play it. He'd throw it back on. He'd play it numerous times in a night until people started rocking. You know, I mean, the first time I heard Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight, it was at Paradise Garage. I'll never forget hearing it because I thought it was Good Times, and I thought, and there was a record called Here Comes That Sound by Love Deluxe by an English group, and the beginning of it sounded like they had sort of took a bit of that, and then it went into Good Times, and I was like, what is this mix? And then I went up to Larry and I saw it, and it was Rapper's Delight, and he played it like 2 or 3 times that night until people got the message.
And know? It went off. I'll tell you another pivotal track as well, actually, was Grandmaster Flash.
Yeah.
And it was called The Adventures of Grandmaster Flash and the Walls of Steel.
Yeah, that was great because that was the first sort of mix. That was the first one that record on wax that actually had the process of mixing on it, you know.
That was an incredible tune, wasn't it? Thinking back, like what it'd done to create that track with all those different, you know, like you could say like a sample or whatever.
It was like a medley, but a scratch medley.
Scratch medley, yeah. And I'll tell you who else was absolutely incredible at the mixes as well, Arthur, as you know, was the Latin Rascals.
Yeah, those are my boys. I heard them on the radio. They were playing their mixes on KTU, and I called up the station. I said, you know, this is Arthur Baker. I just heard a bunch of my tracks being played together. Who did that? And they were like, oh, these kids are Latin Rascals. And I got their number, and within like a few days, they were in my studio, and I hired them, and I gave them the opportunity they were sort of interns at first, and then they started really working and making good money and doing all the edits, man.
And those kind of re-edits.
Yeah, they were great. I mean, they helped me create my sound, you know. So the edits were amazing. Yeah.
And yeah, did you meet any other members of the Soul Sonic Force as well?
Did I meet?
No, I mean back in Bronx.
Yeah, well, I met, the first time I met them, any of the groups, Bam, they came to the studio. You know?
They must have been.
I think I just met them the night we did Planet Rock. I'm pretty sure, because Bam was communicating with them, but because basically what happened was they wrote the verses, and then I came up with like rock the planet rock, don't stop. I came up with that. And then you got to rock it, don't stop it. That was something Bam had that he would use in and his live stuff. So it was a real collaboration, that record.
And it must have been such fun in the studio working with them guys as well.
Yeah. They didn't really know what to expect. In Planet Rock, I think they had been in the studio one other time, so it wasn't they didn't think Globe, when he came in, he was like, he had to go, they couldn't rhyme over the beat. They had to go back and he had to rewrite it and everything. So he just had to change the rhythm because he couldn't fit it into the tempo, to the groove.
And part of the track, it sounds like it's a bit of like a little crowd scene in the background.
Yeah, well, that was my idea, because I wanted to capture the vibe of a live gig, of a live party.
So how did you do that?
Well, we had some kids come in and just do the call and response.
Wow.
We had, I think, maybe the third night right before we were going to mix it. But that, that's what I wanted to do, because that really hadn't been done a lot on record yet. But I think, like, and that record was influenced Rick Rubin. And when Rick did It's Yours, which I signed and put out on my label, he had the crowd response, and he had said that was something he sort of got from Planet Rock, that that call and response on a record.
And I want to give a massive RIP to Pow Wow as well, because we just lost Pow Wow.
Yeah, man. Really
and
sad.
Pow Wow, I met him a couple of times, an absolute diamond.
Yeah.
Someone really approachable, and it was really sad news to hear of the passing of Pow Wow.
Horrible that, I hadn't seen him in quite a while, I have to admit, because there would be gigs and sometimes he was there and sometimes he wasn't, because I was told that he was ill. And there was something recently in Bethesda, Maryland, there's a hip-hop museum there, and Globe and Biggs came down for that, but Pow Wow wasn't well enough to come, which really sad.
A big RIP and a big up to all of the Soul Sonic Force. Yeah. How long did it actually take to produce Planet Rock? I mean,
well, in the studio the first night we went in, we cut all the music, and me and a guy by the name of John Roby.
Big shout to John Roby.
For that one, he was a studio session guy, and then I brought him in as part of the production. But that one, he came in, did all the music. Me, him, and Bam were there. Then the rappers came in. They couldn't figure it out, so they went home. They were jumping on the pianos. They were really bored because we were working and they had nothing to do. So they went into the studio room with all the instruments, and they were singing Elvis Presley songs,
And also, engineer-wise, I know Jay Burnett.
That was Jay Burnett.
Jay Burnett, big shout to Jay Burnett as well. I'm a friend of Jay Burnett as well.
Oh, you are?
Because Jay lives in London, isn't it?
I know, yeah.
Yeah, big shout to Jay Burnett as well. Absolutely incredible engineer.
Yeah, for sure. And like I say, it was a real collaboration, Planet Rock,
And what was what's the reason behind the name Planet Rock?
You know what? I think I didn't come up with it. I assume Bam came up with it, right. or who knows? That could be a mystery. I don't remember.
If anyone knows, leave a comment.
I don't really remember. But when we had the title, it was Rock, the Planet Rock, Don't Stop, and I came up with that off of a disco record that had a similar vibe, which was a record called Body Music. And it goes rock to the rock, punk rock.
Wow, really? Wow.
I've been saying it for years, because the thing is, people, the guys from the group or other people have been, no, we came up with that idea. I'm like, no, you didn't, man. Trust me, I know exactly where I got it. And it was from that record, Yeah.
And also Planet Patrol, stone cold classic tunes like Rock and Play at Your Own Risk, Cheap Thrills. And I'm hoping actually that at the end of this we might be able to drive around and just play a snippet of Rock at Your Own Risk.
Yeah.
Because that's one of my favourites.
Yeah, it's cool, right? Because you know what? It was sort of like being able to remix Planet Rock again. But with all the all that music we did the first night. That's the thing. We did all the music that we used on Planet Rock and Play at Your Own Risk. The same session, the first session, we just kept overdubbing and coming up with all these other.
And you got the bongos. You got the bongos.
Yeah,
in
we
the
had.
rock.
Well, Bashiri Johnson, he came in. That was after the fact. I mean, but all the other music was done on the same night, which is pretty interesting because we just kept overdubbing because we didn't know what we were going to use, and I was just like, play a clavinet part, play this, play that, and then I always loved using acoustic instruments with the drum machine. I always thought it sort of worked well, and you know.
I'll tell you what, when the Perfect Beat album come out as well, that was an absolute game changer as well. That album, the Perfect Beat album.
Yeah.
You know, with Planet Rock on there,
Yeah.
Play and Rock at Your Own Risk.
Yeah.
I think Space is the Place was
Yeah,
on there,
Mike-
and Pac Jam. Is that right?
Yeah, Johnson Crew, yeah.
Johnson
yeah.
Crew, yeah. That album was.
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
a game.
no, it
I
was
mean,
a-
I was like 13 when I bought that album.
Yeah.
It was.
And how many years ago was that?
That was 83, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
1983 that come out.
Yeah, that was yeah. I mean, that came out. I think that came out here first.
Oh, did it?
I think it did. Yeah.
And the actual sleeve as well. What was the story behind the? It had a wicked sleeve, like a b-boy, sort of like looking like a neon kind of
God,
background.
you'd have to show me, man, because I don't remember. I don't remember the cover. I mean, I know there were a few covers, and then there was a version that 21 Records over here put out that had that collection. So yeah, and it looked more like a space landing or something, you know.
Early electro, as you know, in the UK, we called it electro or electro funk.
Yeah,
we wasn't
yeah.
calling or rap music, but that stuff like you was making after with the 808, the electronic sound, like the Johnson Crewman, Parish,
Yeah.
Al Hashim, the Soul, the Smurf, Tyrone
Yeah.
Brunson, all that we was calling
Called
that
electro.
electro. What
Yeah.
was you calling it?
We eventually called it electro, but it may have come. I'm not sure if it came from over here or you know, because then they called it, you know, then it became Latin freestyle. I mean, there are all these different names, but I would say it was electro over there too. I mean, what else could you call it? You know, it was like.
And you know, obviously in New York and over here, we was calling the MCing or the rapping stuff. We was calling that rap music.
Yeah.
When would you say would be the year where you started to actually call it hip hop music?
Michael would be better for that.
Yeah.
You know,
Michael is a real historian.
Yeah, I mean, I know about the music, but the history.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot about. Trust me, I was there for a lot of the history, but I couldn't tell you like when they first started.
To call it hip hop.
Michael claims that he used hip hop first in an article. Stephen Hager, who wrote Beat Street, he claims he used it first. I'm not sure who used it first, but it was around that time, probably 80, 81, around then.
And Breaker's Revenge as well. What an incredible tune.
Thank you.
Did you actually put that together for the film Beat Street?
Yeah,
or
it was done for Beat Street.
It was actually done for Beat Street.
Yeah, it was done for that scene.
And what was the title? It was because Breaker's Revenge.
What was, well, I don't know. I just thought the Revenge of the Breakers. You know, it sounded good, you know.
So you went with that.
And now I call my radio show in America Baker's Revenge.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Did you used to drive around in the car? I know some producers back in the day used to like drive around in the car before they released the track to like have a listen on the car stereo.
Well, yeah, I would, but I'd also play it in the club.
So your club was like your.
Yeah, it was like my car.
It was
But
like
I
your
would play.
car.
No, I would play it. I'd play it in my car. I had a cassette player, and I'd play my tracks in the car. But I mean, to really get the vibe, I would play it in the clubs.
And you're in a hip hop history documentary, Beat This, which was on the TV show Arena.
The Arena, yeah.
How did you get a part in hip hop history?
They approached me. I don't, you know, because at that time, you know, the thing was, I had so many different hit records in England, but I had never been to England, so they were always trying to get me to do things, you know. And I'm not sure what year was that.
84, 84,
Yeah.
85.
84. So before that, I had been in the New Order Confusion video, so I had already been in that, and. I don't know how it really came about, the Arena thing, but it's great footage. I mean, you know, it's classic footage because there's no other footage of the Soul Sonic Force in the studio. You know?
Exactly, and that's my next question. You know, that scene where, you know, come on, Mr. Engineer, get it right, get it right, because if
That
you
is
don't,
so great.
what is the story behind that? Who was the engineer?
The engineer was Chris Lord-Alge, and I don't know. What must have happened was like we did something and it didn't work. There was like a problem with the microphone, you know. So they came up with that. I'm actually using that footage in a film that I've just directed about basically about Walking on Sunshine, the record Walking on Sunshine, Rocker's Revenge. So, but it's funny, I got the rights to use that scene, which is
such a
classic scene.
brilliant scene. And you know, us can still remember it from all them years back.
Me too, man.
Yeah, it's a great.
It's crazy. It's that scene. But it must have, you know, obviously it was much more influential for kids to have seen that. You know?
Yeah, no, totally. And when's the first time, you know, you come to London, and what did you think when you first got to London?
Well, the first time I came to London was '87 already. So basically, by then I was sort of doing like more like almost house music and stuff, and yeah, I mean, I had some great times because like at that point, the Beasties came over and I was friends with
Run
them.
DMC
So
and
I went to the parties, and yeah, it just seemed like a really, you know, it seemed that it was infected by the hip hop bug.
Well, we call it, I mean, we call the hip hop bug quite early doors, you know.
Yeah, when I came over in '87, I was there. They did Def Jam parties and the Beastie Boys and all this stuff. So it was really cool when I got here. When I finally made it here, I really loved it. And then, as I said, I sort of moved here from probably not 1993. So just like 5 years later, I was living here full time.
And how long did you live in London for?
I lived in London for about 25 years.
Wow. Whereabouts?
I lived in pretty much west, but I did live in Camden for a while, right behind the Sainsbury's in Camden. I lived there for a year and a half. I lived in Primrose Hill for a year. And then I lived in West London, you know, the rest of it.
And didn't you have a snooker hall as well?
I did. I had the Elbow Room.
I think I went to the snooker hall. Oh,
and
yeah, the Elbow Room as well.
We had a bunch of them, yeah. We had one in Chapel Market. We had one in West London on Westbourne Grove. We had one in Swiss Cottage. We had one on Curtin Road, and then we had one in where do we have it? In Bristol. We had one in Leeds. We had like 7 of them.
So you're a big fan of snooker?
No. Well, there's American pool first.
American pool, right?
And then, you know, but I would.
Oh, so they were pool tables, not snooker.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, and I would program the music, and the one in Chapel Market, we had lots of different people, you know, play DJ, play live there. So you know, we had really good music policy, and cool people would come and hang out and play.
And in terms of record digging, was you record digging in London?
Yeah, I lived in Camden, man.
Where was you going? Can you remember some of the shops?
When I lived in Notting Hill, I'd go to the record and tape exchange.
Yeah.
Right by on the high street, right by the Notting Hill Gate. And then when I was in Camden, there were a bunch. I mean, and then the market, Camden Market on Saturday, the records, you could get records everywhere, you know.
Our Camden Market was full of me and Ross, because actually it was going to big shout out to Ross Allen.
Yeah.
As I said, you know, a good friend of mine from back in the day.
Yeah, I've known Ross since '92, man.
Yeah.
We've been friends for over 30 years. That's nuts.
Yeah, and these NTS radio shows are great.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Arthur, because I don't really want to kind of go into too much detail, because I know, you know, you've got the book coming out. And
well, we can talk about the book.
Let's talk about the book in a sec. But one question I do want to ask you, actually, for anyone watching this who wants to become like a music producer, is there kind of any kind of, you know, words of enthusiasm or any, any advice?
You know what? It's funny because I started a podcast called also Looking for the Perfect Beat. And one of the first ones I did, it's coming out very, very soon, probably in the next month. And I interviewed Jelly Bean Benitez because he's a friend and he's in the book, and he said, you know, you gave me some really good advice when I was starting out, and I said, God, what did I say to you? He said, I told him to just go with your instincts, you know, just go with what you know.
What you feel.
Just go with the feel. And he said it was really helpful for him. And so I would say that to anyone, you know, just go with your thing, you know, whatever that is when you're making a record, just go for what you like.
What you
and
feel.
Then hopefully some other people will like it. But don't try to make records for someone else. Make them for yourself, and then, you know.
And it's mad the way it's changed now, isn't it? Where you can make music on a laptop.
I know. Well, you can.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you still have a dabble on a laptop making music, or?
Well, I make all my music on a laptop. Even
Really?
Now, yeah.
And what program do you use?
I use Logic.
Last time I spoke to Michael, he was saying about the Beat Street theatre show. So what's the latest with that? Is that going to be coming to Broadway or to London?
Well, we're hoping to launch it on Broadway and then bring it over here to London. We've been working on it for nearly 8 years, so it's a long time in the making. But yeah, I mean, we've got a really good team. We got Nas. He's our partner in it, so he's going to be writing the rhymes for it, and then the guy who's writing the book is a guy by the name of Christopher Diaz, who worked on Alicia Keys' musical Hell's Kitchen, which won two Tonys. So he's very good. So it's exciting because I'm pretty much, I think I know that once it's out, it's going to be successful, but it's still been quite a while in the works, you know.
Like hobbies and all that. I mean, I know you're, you know, banging to obviously the music, the production and all that, but have you got any kind of little hobbies that you like to do?
Hobbies, I swim.
Oh, you love swimming? Yeah, because you went
day.
Earlier, didn't you, today?
Yeah, I just swim right before you picked me up. I swim every day. It's my exercise.
What is the reason behind the swimming?
Because I had a bad knee.
Right.
I had meniscus surgery, and I was in Australia DJing for New Order, and I had an issue with it, and I went under the laser, you know, and the doctor said, listen, it's not the knee, it's your calves, and the best exercise is swimming. And I just started swimming, and that's like over 20 years, and
it's really helped.
I swim every day. I mean, I really do. If I'm, you know, at home, I swim every day because I have a pool. When I'm over here, I try to swim every day, but sometimes I don't. But I'll swim like at least four times a week. When I'm in London, I'll do it 4 times a week.
And where are you living now back in the States?
Miami. I live in Miami, so it's easy. I got a pool in the garden, and I swim right there.
And let's get on to it. Right, the new book, Looking for the Perfect Beat. Tell me about your new book. Have you got a copy on you, Arthur?
Yeah, I do, actually. I could show it.
Yeah,
right?
let's have a little look. Right, so yeah.
There's the book.
Can you do a close-up to the camera? Let's have a little... Yeah, that's it. Wow.
There it is.
That's you in the studio there.
That's me in the studio in 1980, I would say 85, because that's when... this would have been from around the Beat Street sessions.
Look at the size of that book. That's like a doorstop.
You know how many
That's like
pages?
a brick.
It's 473 pages.
Wow.
And
Sorry, I didn't realise it was such a...
And I wrote it all myself. And Michael Holman's very impressed that I actually finished it.
How long did it take to finish?
It took about, I would say it took about a year and a half. The whole process.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was actually pretty. It was pretty easy to do. Finishing it was difficult, but it was, and then there's a lot of photos. I was like, I don't want photos just in one section. I want photos throughout the book, so I had to do that. And yeah, it's I'll never read it. I wrote it, but the bottom line is people who have read it. Like the people who've been interviewing me, like Irvin Welsh interviewed me at the Bearded Theory Festival yesterday. He said it's actually, he was surprised how well written it was. So, I'm sort of, I mean, and the other 2 people who interviewed me, Kate Spice and Miranda Sawyer, both thought it was well written. So that feels good because I fancy myself a writer. I like writing, I always have. So
Well, to be honest though, Arthur, it's a very, very important, documentation of your history. You're someone that really did need to write a book. I mean, you could even do a film on you. I mean, it's you probably got stories for days and days.
They're most of them are in the book. That's it, because I got a lot of great stories, and and they're in the book. They are in the book. I've done pretty much. I'm not saying every story I got, but I mean, obviously there's a lot of stories in there, and I think it'll probably be entertaining. Well, it will be entertaining for music fans for sure.
Well, anyone watching this, where can they buy the book from?
Anywhere, man. It's in.
Just go online.
No, it's in any bookshop and record shop.
And it's literally just been released, hasn't it?
It was released on 22nd on Thursday.
Yeah.
But friends have sending me pictures where they'd see it in the bookshops and stuff.
Yeah, so anyone watching this, looking for the perfect beat.
Looking for the Perfect Beat by Arthur Baker on Faber. That's the publishing company. But it'll be in all the bookshops, and also if you go on Amazon, you can get it there. But it's better to support bookshops, if you can.
Well, I really cannot.
And
wait.
record shops.
Record shop,
all the record shops have it too. Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you get a copy. I need to. I need to get the that book off. I don't know if that's a spare one, Arthur, but it'd be amazing to grab a copy off of you.
Yeah.
Right before we rock at your own risk. I don't know if should we have a play of that on the way back?
Hear that. I'd love to hear that.
But one question. I want to put to you. Last and final question.
That is me barking. That is me barking on that, by the way.
It's not.
It is.
Oh, it is you barking?
Yeah, and all the hey buddy buddies. That's me.
That's
man.
you as well.
Yeah, and me. I'm on looking for the perfect beat. When I'm looking for the perfect beat, that's me too.
That's you as well.
I'd put myself on my records for sure.
Wow. Yeah. How about the vocoder as well?
The vocoder, we didn't have the vocoder on Planet Rock or looking for but on looking for the perfect beat, there was I don't know if it was a vocoder, but we used an electronic. There was a vocoder on Funky Soul Makossa. There was a vocoder on that.
Because when I spoke to Jay Benet, he said on Planet Rock, he was going rock with the Planet Rock, don't stop. So it sounded like a vocoder, but it wasn't.
He used a slapback on the PC M41 so that it sounded metallic. That's how he did it. Jay came up with that technology. Well, he knew how to get that sound, which is the sound that's on the record for sure.
That's an incredible time, and what you was actually working with is nothing like today.
Well, what we were working with is the people claim that was one of the first sort of the technology. It was literally that's where technology sort of came with that record, but we didn't have a lot of gear. We had we rented the 808. Roby had a micro Moog, not even a mini Moog, a micro Moog, and he had what else did he have? He had a few other keys, one other key, and then a keyboard, and that was it. And we had like one delay unit and a reverb. It wasn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So for you
he had a Prophet. He had a Prophet 5. So the strings and stuff on Planet Rock were Prophet 5. And Micro Moog. Those were the two keyboards and the 808.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So for you to come up with those kind of tracks is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, using what we had, because we didn't have a lot.
And also other producers, obviously Man Parrish as well. It's incredible what he was doing.
Absolutely.
Johnson Crew.
Yeah.
All them.
There was a whole sound, yeah.
There was so many. But basically the final question before we're going to play Rock at Your Own Risk and drive you back to Old Street.
Go for it.
Did you find that perfect beat?
No. Still looking. Looking, searching, seeking, finding. Looking for the perfect beat, people. Here's the perfect beat for you. Soul Sonic's main theme with the chorus you can sing. Roundup. Looking for the perfect beat. Looking for the perfect beat. Wow. We like the party, rock the party. We like the MC pop the party. Looking Looking. I must get mine. I've got to get it, Mr. Biggs.
Looking for the perfect beat.
Now Pow Wow is looking for the perfect beat. The GLOBE has got the perfect beat. People of the world looking for the perfect beat. All the boys and girls looking for the perfect beat. The Soul Sonic Force. Beat this.
Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely incredible. Right, we're going to buckle up now.
I'm buckling up, and we're going to rock.
And we're going to play Rock at Your Own Risk live in the cab. I've always wanted this. Arthur Baker in the back of the London UltraCab playing Rock at Your Own Risk.
All right.
So we're going to do this. And anyone watching, make sure you buy Arthur's book.
Buy the book.
Get the
looking
book
for the perfect
because it's
beat.
absolutely going to be mind blowing with all them stories in it. But let's buckle up and let's get this.
I'm buckled,
rocking.
man. Let's rock this.
Let's hit the play button. Let's do this.
The play button. Is there a play button on here? Play at your own risk. Tommy boy in the house.
Rocking the cab with the big man himself, Arthur Baker in the back.
Yeah.
Driving the streets of London town.
Bongos.
Let's go.
The shade on the bongos. Yeah, why you play with me? It's at your risk.
Gotta set you free.
Woo, woo, woo. Hey, buddy. There it is. Woo, 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 woo. Hey, buddy, buddy. Hey, buddy, buddy.
Rocking out the cab.
You're too hard to stop. Hey, party. I thought we got love, not love. Girl, you got
Then I'm gonna set you free.
Woof, woof. Hey, buddy, buddy. Hey, buddy, buddy. Woof, 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 woof. Hey, buddy, buddy. Hey, buddy, buddy. Woof, woof, woof.
Amazing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sounding good.
Big shout out to the man, Michael Holman.
EC1 in the house.
Rock it, don't stop. The UltraCab in town, in London town.
GLAY. Woof, woof. Hey, buddy, buddy. Hey, buddy, buddy. Hey, buddy. Woof, 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 woof.
Absolutely incredible. Arthur,
yeah, man, thank you.
Man.
Thank
you.
you.
A real honour to have you in the back
Thank
of a
you.
London iconic, world-class UltraCab.
It's been an experience.
And I know we've had a few little pit stops along the way. But anyone watching, support Arthur's book. Go out there and buy it because it's going to be absolutely mind-blowing.
Looking for the perfect beat.
Yes. And Arthur,
beat this.
I hope you enjoyed this little cab chat.
Yeah, it
We
was
must
great.
listen when you come back to London. We
Great.
must rock a part 2.
Absolutely, with my daughter. You know, she's gonna want to be, and when she sees this, she's gonna be very jealous. I know.
Oh yeah, big up my man, and yes,
Thank
a
you.
real honour to meet.
Thanks, man.
All right, Arthur,
Yeah,
peace from the UltraCab.
Great.